Yep, Fred's gonna ride this. Shit.
Most people in the Valley of the Sun think of Brown's Ranch as a scenic desert trail system that is pretty flat and pretty easy. Most of the trails are flowy blues and greens, and it's great for beginners and intermediate riders alike. However, if you want to try something more challenging, check out North and South El Diablo. Although these are multi-access trails, I believe they had mountain bikers in mind when they carved switchbacks through boulders and added steep rock slabs. I have gotten through many of the trail features here, however I still have fear on a few of the steep slab descents. My goals today are to improve my climbing skills and get full use of my dropper post without crawling down any of the rock slabs. With Emily's advice, let's see what I can do. On our way to the Diablos, we always have trouble with this switchback.
Alright, she wants the outside here. Oh yeah. I'm gonna put this down here.
Hi everybody.
So when you went around the corner, you kind of, there's that rock on the right side.
Yes.
You cut, like, you went to the right, but you cut right before it, and somehow you got over.
So I think, in my opinion, that technical turn is a trick.
Yeah.
The inclination when you're making that turn is to avoid the rock. You know, I was joking with Fred about 75% of the time I make that turn, but a lot of the time when I ride it, I go right over the rock. And I think it's psychology. For me, the trick is to, once again, come to trust that a troll's not going to jump out and suddenly move you off your line. If you trust that you lean in and turn your wheel, even if you're going over some tech, the bike will continue to follow that trajectory. That one is a trust exercise because it looks scary and everything is screaming in your mind, avoid the rock, avoid the rock. So this time I might have gone a little bit in front of it, but often I'll ride right over it. And also you'll notice, so at least when I'm riding it, I like to have the dead weight of my saddle. So I'm sitting at the time, I'm not standing. And then you're leaning in and just kind of coasting. And then there's one point for me, you know, I don't know if it's my weight or my style, but where my front tire actually lifts a little bit. I'm actually about an inch off, and I let my body weight start to tip me, and then right when the front tire makes contact is about when I start to straighten. So that one is, it's tricky and it's psychological, but that's how I make it through.
Yeah. And I happened to actually make it this time. I went on the right side. I went to the far right around the rock.
Yep.
But what happened with that was that it slowed me down to almost close to a track stand.
Right.
And that almost killed me coming up the next technical rock section because I had to, you know, the only reason why I got through is because I just powered through it. So it was not finesse. It was definitely power over finesse.
No style.
Yeah, no style. So I think what happens is sometimes my back wheel will either get caught up on it, and again, I don't have the speed to get through it, so that's what kind of gets me caught up, and I get stuck.
You bring up a really good point, though. Another trick about this is it's kind of a two-stage. There's that initial hook where you've got some tech that's blocking your natural tire line, right? And you have to make a quick decision, front, over, or behind. And the problem with behind, as you've just described, is it does hook up your rear tire right when phase 2 starts, which is you need power, because there's a whole nother section there where you have to kind of power up a little bit of that gnar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're hooked up on that rock and you start to pedal, you'll lose your grip, and then you'll spin out, and then you'll just stop, and you're like, So yeah, so that one is definitely, it's funny, this isn't a wildly techy area here, but that one's a good one to train on. And we've actually seen people sessioning this, haven't we?
Yeah, we've seen people sessioning coming down, doing the down, not the climb part, but it's the same holds true, that you still have to be very careful on how you make that downhill turn as well, because it's the same kind of things. You still get caught up on the same rocks, and you have a little bit more momentum on the downhill versus the uphill. All right, Emily, you take lead.
I'm sorry?
You take lead.
everybody, so we're here to talk a little bit about slab rides. So there is, in my mind's eye, kind of two kinds of slab rides. There's sprint slab rides and there's marathon slab rides. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is we have a nice perfect little session area here to talk about doing a sprint slab ride. So the strategy that I like to use on the slab rides for climbing is, first of all, I like to be locked out, so you're not getting a lot of suspension bob. Generally, I only lock out my rear. The front I leave open. The second thing is the approach. You can see here this is a fairly mellow approach on this slab, but a lot of times you'll get a bit of an updraft. So my strategy is I like to pull up a little bit on the bars right when my wheel is meeting your updraft. That unloads a little bit of tension and prevents you from feeling like you're going to Superman over the bars. It kind of gets you started up on the slab. At that point, I run a 28 front ring, so I run a very low gear. I stay in the saddle, and it's okay on a sprint slab ride to do a lot of high RPMs, right? Not good for a marathon, you'll wear yourself out, but you can see here this is a really tight, quick little slab. And by staying in the seat, by staying in the saddle, you rear load your traction on the rear tire. It gives you awesome grip. And finally, you should do a little bit of an evaluation of the surface. And you can see here, this is what they call decomposing granite. And this is a beautiful, beautiful surface for sessioning on. You can see it's nice and grippy. Breaks loose a little bit, but it's not completely disintegrating. The angle isn't crazy, so this is a perfect sessioning environment. And with that, we're going to give you a little demo. Our slightly more advanced sprint slab ride. Get a little speed, shift to the easy, butt stays in the saddle. Okay, so we got another sprint climb here. You can see where Fred's tire is. He's giving us an example of where he's going to unload his shock when he comes up. But another little trick here on climbing these slabs. Now look at this thing. This is steep. Another little trick is use your momentum. So Fred's going to get a little bit of a launch, and I get into kind of my third gear. I pedal, build up a bunch of momentum. And right about where I'm unloading the shock, where Fred is, I downshift into my easiest gear, keep my butt in the seat, and then I pedal in my lowest gear right up. So let's see how Fred does. Nicely done. So now we've got our second type of slab ride here. And this is more what I call a marathon slab ride. You get lots and lots and lots and lots of this stuff in Moab. So it's not particularly steep. In fact, in Moab you'll often get miles of this stuff just perfectly level. But what you can see, what's special about this slab is it's off camber. So most of the trick about riding this stuff is I leave my shock open, keep a little bit of speed, stay in the saddle, and then use your core to balance. Now this is a little bit tricky. There's a little bit of tech here because you have to sort of weave your way between these boulders. But also it doesn't hurt to have a really, really good set of tires. So Fred and I run the Maxxis DHRs, and they're super grippy on this kind of stuff. Also, again, evaluating your surface. This stuff will become pretty hazardous when it's wet. So today is bone dry, and so this is an easy peasy. I have my shock open, stay in my seat, use your core, keep yourself nice and threaded, and just enjoy yourself. There's very little tech, no fissures, nothing you have to really watch out for. Marathon ride here through some off-camber, little bit of slab ride here. Notice how I'm using my core to stay nice and centered. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, now this is the downhill side on a slab ride. So you can see we're on more of this decomposing granite. And what would you say? This is at least a 45-degree incline here, right? 100%
Yeah, this
grade.
is definitely a pretty
So,
steep climb.
This is marked as a black diamond. And the strategy for downhilling on a slab like this, opposite of climbing, on the downhill, you definitely want to be out of your saddle. And that's going to give you some manipulation to kind of use body English to throw the bike around a little bit. So I like to get a little bit behind the saddle, stand up. Fred's lucky enough to have a dropper, so he'll have his in the down position. And so you've got a lot of like movement in your body. Pick your line, and then motocross brake style. Too much rear, you're going to skid. Too much front, you're going to Superman over the bars. You want to be the baby bear, like, or middle bear there, just right? So motocross style braking, a little bit back behind the saddle. You're up out of the saddle and you're kind of springy. And I like to move at roughly a fast walking pace. You don't have to go crazy down this stuff. Gives you enough time to assess your line, assess the risk, but you're not exactly track standing. And Fred and I practiced this line a bunch of times, and then when you begin to see the line, it doesn't seem so scary anymore. It's off camber and steep. Here we go. Here's his approach. It's good. He's out of the saddle, picking his line. Okay, so we're going to do a non-technical switchback. I often tell people following behind me to give me plenty of space because I have a long wheelbase, and so doing these 180-degree switchbacks, I tend to track stand and I lean a little bit into the switchback. So we're going to lean a little bit left here, so nice and slow. And it also pays to go a little bit on the outside line here. And now I'm basically, you can see there I just track standed, leaned a little bit left, and let the bike carry me through. So this slab ride has two interesting features around it. I kind of call this it's a blind drop-in, so you can't really tell when you drop in here. You see the trail way down there, but you don't really know the line. So there's a lot of advantages here to either the very brave or internalizing the line. You can kind of learn it a few times. So let's just walk through it. So obviously you're not going to take the cactus, so the line has to be through the middle, right? So we're going to come up right through here. Generally I avoid ruts like this, right? So probably a good line right up on this decomposing granite is right through here. And then we're going to apply our usual strategy, which is track standing comfortably behind, a little bit behind the seat, a comfortable bouncy position, and your motocross style braking. But there's a trick to this one, which is as you're comfortably making your way down, you're a little off camber, but all these lines are good. There's plenty to work with here, not even particularly steep, until you get to the bottom here. And this is more of a psych out, right? This is really actually, for a bike, it's the same thing as just a continuous slab, but there's a couple of pieces that have been stacked up here to form somewhat of a nice little ramp. So for me, my style of getting over something like this is potentially an endo maker, right? So obviously a longer travel fork is gonna serve you a little better, but I get more dramatically behind the seat than usual. And again, Fred's lucky he has a dropper, so he doesn't have to worry about behind the seat so much. But so I line up track stand, make my way right about here. Then I even more dramatically get behind the seat, crouch down a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to resist the bike's urge to endo. And your front tire will come down just like this is a continuous pour of concrete, like it's a nice little ramp. I prefer to come a little left here where there's a nice flat spot here instead of hooking you up on this, which again could contribute to a little bit of endoing, and then begin to relax out of that exaggerated behind the seat position right about here, and right through. Shock open. All right, so I'm just going to comfortably walk the dog on this, right? I'm behind the seat, and right down here, a little more exaggerated, and then let go. Roll right through. So I always tell Fred how bummed out I am by the camera flattens everything out, makes it look so much easier. But look, he's hiking up there so he can go do this line. It gives you an idea of how crazy this is. It's okay, nothing wrong with dabbing. Walking the dog and let go.
It's a great feeling to conquer another fear and progress my technical skill set. I encourage you to ride with more advanced mountain bikers so you can challenge yourself to build up your technique. While Emily and I were videoing our sessions, a few riders came through and showed us some more new lines we didn't even know existed. I'm so happy these trails were added into the system, and I can't wait to ride here again and learn something new. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. In the comments, let us know your mountain bike fears or skills you would like to improve. Maybe we'll tackle that one next.
Ah, I can't see. I'm all fogged.